What's going on, everyone? It's the Tyrant here. We're back with another Resident Evil analysis video. Today we're going to be talking about the original Resident Evil Remake with my iconic friend here, HiddenXperia.
Good evening, friends. It's good to be back again, talking about Resident Evil. I always love doing these videos, so yeah, it's good to be back, talking about a different and yet still incredible remake.
To me, it is the remake. So I look at Resident Evil Remake versus Resident Evil 2 and 3 remakes, and to me, the original Resident Evil Remake is a remake in the true word, in the true form, versus Resident Evil 2 and 3, which I feel like are reimaginings. So you played Resident Evil Remake for the first time recently, didn't you?
I did, and it was one of those things where when I finished it, I was like, why the hell did I wait this long to fully play it? I started it a few years ago, like quite a few times, and I never got that far into it for some reason. But this time, like, I was like, okay, I'm finishing it. And like literally the second that I started playing it again, I completely fell in love with it. And it's probably one of my top 5 favorite games of all time, I'd say. Maybe even top 3, possibly, if I'm feeling like it.
Top 3? What are your other two?
Halo 2 and Metal Gear Solid 2.
I've never played Metal Gear Solid 2. I played the first one. I never played the second one.
Dude, MGS2 is one of the best games of all time. Like, that game is incredible. It's one of the best video games ever made. Easily,
Can I play it on the PlayStation 4?
Wait, is it Resident Evil 4?
No, can I play it on the PlayStation 4?
Oh, yeah, sorry. I think you can do. I'm pretty sure the MGS collection, which was the 360 and PS3 remaster of it, I believe you can play that on the PS4. If not, you can definitely play it on the Xbox One. That's backwards compatible on the Xbox One. Well, there's also a really weird PC port of it that I wouldn't suggest playing, but it's definitely worth playing on console for sure.
PC ports can be a little bit interesting, as we learned with Halo.
Yeah, just a little bit.
Especially now with the Master Chief Collection. All right, let's get back to Resident Evil before we start getting into Halo discussions. We can talk about that in a little bit. But all right, so before we dive into the actual campaign of Resident Evil, let's talk about the mechanics. Now, have you played the original Resident Evil?
No, not. You mean like the '96 version?
Yes.
I haven't played that.
Oh,
I haven't played that.
No. Well, that's okay. That's okay. What I loved about this game is that it was a remake in the true sense. It didn't take anything away, but it enhanced it. We'll get to the campaign parts in a little bit, but let's talk about the mechanics a little bit. So how did you feel about the fact that you couldn't just shoot zombies?
I liked it. It added to the tension perfectly. And honestly, as much as I absolutely love RE2 and RE3 remakes, it's made me look at them in a different light, because the fact that the zombies weren't just a target that you could put down and then walk past, like, you had to actually meander around them. And then obviously if you did put them down, then that was going to end up biting you in the ass in the end. It added so much more tension to it. It added a depth of it was almost like its own mechanic. Choosing which zombies to put down in certain areas and which ones to leave alive and just walk around. And I feel like it added to the atmosphere of the game so well. Like, so well. If you remade that game and made it so every single zombie could be killed permanently, then it would completely ruin it. And I'm happy they didn't do that.
And the simple fact is, it's not easy to run around zombies, is it? Because you're in very tight corridors the entire time. You're in the Spencer Mansion from start to finish.
Yeah, they make a point of funneling you down very tight corridors. And like even the areas that are maybe slightly more open, like the dining room and stuff, like they put objects in their way to make sure that you're running down like quite a tight path. So you've always got to find like an alternate route or like stagger them or something. You can't just put them down or easily run around them.
You have to learn how to dodge them, which, if you look at my Resident Evil Remake full campaign and cutscene video, I attempted that a few times and failed miserably and wasted so many daggers.
Yeah, I thought going into it, 'cause I've seen a few videos before about the game, and I thought going into it, that was a mechanic that sort of like at first was really difficult, but over time you sort of got comfortable with and started, like muscle memory kicked in, you learned how to do it. It wasn't the case for me at all. Like, it was almost random when I could do it correctly and when I couldn't throughout the entire campaign. Like, towards the start, I did it a few times, but then choked a few times, and then even at the end, like, I managed it a few times and then choked a few times again. It was a lot more difficult to learn how to do it than I thought it was going to be, which again is a good thing because it makes the game difficult, and games like that are meant to be difficult because the difficulty adds to the tension and the atmosphere.
Yes, it does, indeed. In fact, I'll say that the graphics for the game really do add to that. The photorealistic environments are, I mean, they still, here we are in 2020. This game came out in 2002. And the graphics still hold up to this day.
Yeah. They really do. They really, really do.
I mean, it's just super amazing how I can watch this like a movie now. And I hate to say this, folks, but the original Resident Evil Remake is far better than any of the Resident Evil movies.
Yeah, I mean, that goes without saying, I think. I feel like that's an objective fact at this point, but it really is. The horror and the sort of eeriness and the creepy tone of the game is the best execution I've ever seen in any video game ever, like, quite easily. Even more so than, like, more recent games, like Alien Isolation and Outlast that have done it really well. RE Remake nails the horror, the survival horror atmosphere and genre better than any other game ever, like, period.
I agree completely. There's this one part where you're going in through one of the hallways, and the glass from one of the windows cracks. Nothing comes out, but it cracks, and you wonder what the hell is on the other side.
Yeah, and then there's a point later when it cracks and things do come through, where it God, my God, when those two dogs first came through the windows, I got stuck on the bit for so long. At first, it freaked me out, and then I was stuck in it for ages because I had like 3 rounds left and 2 dogs to get past. God, that section, I have nightmares about that.
So do I. I love the part when you're actually going through, and again, we're going into spoiler territory, but again, the game came out in 2002, so if you haven't played it yet, you should. Sorry about this, but we're going through a full, deep analysis of this game. You're going through one of the hallways, and you hear the scratching on the window. And then, when you come back through, the zombies just burst through.
It's like proper horror movie type stuff.
It is. It's fantastic. And that's why one of the things I actually miss when it comes to the Resident Evil 2 and 3 remakes is the over-the-shoulder camera versus the tank controls. I know that a lot of people don't like the tank controls, but it added some sort of extra suspense that I've never encountered in another video game.
Tank controls for games like that are like peanut butter and jelly. They go together so perfectly. Something quite interesting, actually, that I wanted to bring up in this video when we talk about tank controls that I hadn't realized until now is that, I don't know if you've seen 28 Days Later, like, I'm sure you have done.
I've seen both movies, 28 Days Later and 28 Weeks Later.
Yeah,
loved them. So
28 Days Later, arguably, I think many people would say one of the best horror movies of all time, the best zombie movie of all time. Alex Garland actually took a lot of inspiration from the original Resident Evil when writing that, and the sort of camera angles and the direction that Danny Boyle used in that movie. When I'd played RE1 for the first time, specifically some of the camera angles when you get to the lab at the end, which is, again, a bit spoilery, but, I mean, again, game's been out for almost 2 decades now. If you haven't played it, then I'm sorry, but your time's run out for no spoilers. Yeah, some of the camera angles in that lab at the end are, like, identical to some of the camera direction in 28 Days Later. It actually took me by surprise in some areas. I was like, wait, hang on, did Danny Boyle and Alex Garland, like, directly translate some of this stuff into the movie? And then I went and found out that maybe they did, because Alex Garland was massively inspired by Resident Evil. So, tank controls fit this game unbelievably well. Tank controls and fixed camera, just, perfect. Butter.
The zombies in 28 Days Later are all Crimson Heads.
They pretty much are, to be fair. I mean, they besides the massive claws, they pretty much are.
So let's talk about the Crimson Heads a little bit. When was the first time you actually encountered one?
Oh, so I feel like the first time you were meant to encounter one was when you went and released a coffin. My first encounter was actually a lot earlier than that, because I went through, I knew what the Crimson Heads were going into the game, and I knew like the lore behind them, so I don't know why the hell I did this, but I went into the game wasting every zombie. I think partly because I found so much pistol ammo along the way, like quite early on, so I was like, oh, I should be okay, I'll just waste them all. And then like, I think I hadn't even gotten the first key yet, and one popped up, or maybe I'd just gotten the first key and one popped up, and it was in that really, really tight hallway with all the mirrors that leads towards the helmet key upstairs. One popped up there, and it just instant me. Like, I didn't expect it. I looked in the mirror to see around the corner to see if anything was there. Nothing was there, so I was like, oh, fair enough, I'll be able to just walk past. And then I turned the corner, and like, there it was, just out of the angle of the mirror, and it just one-shot me, and I was like, okay, this is going to be a lot harder than I thought.
Crimson Heads are definitely a new turn for the series. The original Resident Evil didn't have them. And so what you could do is exactly what you said, was gun down all the zombies and move on. Here, you have to be a lot more tactical about it, and there's only two ways to dispose of them. One, a headshot with the shotgun, or two, you have to burn them.
Yeah.
So which did you choose?
A bit of both. Most of it was shotgunning, I think. Or grenade launching, actually. I grenade launched quite a few. But most of it was shotgunning. I did get a few instances where I'd kill two on the same spot, so then I'd light them on fire. Try and get two of them at once. But most of it was shotgun. The backstory of the Crimson Heads as well is quite interesting, because Shinji Mikami actually wanted to put them in the original game, from what I remember, but they couldn't because of like dev time, and they were also limited by hardware. So when they did this remaster, he came back to it and was like, right, we're going to make it the game that we always wanted it to be. And then the Crimson Heads came in. I think that's kind of cool. I'd love for more devs to be able to do that to their games.
That was fantastic. I love the Crimson Head dynamic just because it really puts the survival horror in that game. You can't just kill the zombies. You have to be very strategic about it.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. It's not just a case of like running through and killing every enemy that you see. Like, you have to actually treat every enemy differently. Like, some of them you might need to kill, but some of them, like, for example, there was one for me that spawned on the second level of the dining room, and I was like, you know what? I don't need to do anything in here. I can just leave this guy, and I'm pretty sure for my entire playthrough, that zombie is still alive right now. He's still walking around the top floor of the dining room right now.
Indeed. That was one of the zombies I left alone as well. The only zombies that I actually killed, I think, were... There's this hallway where you go into the chest room.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
He needs to die. you would have transferred...
Yeah, that was... I had that issue as well with that exact zombie. I know which one you mean.
And then there's this other one where there's... I forget. One door leads out to a walkway where you have to use the dog whistle.
Oh, yes. Yeah. I know. I remember that.
There's
God,
two
yeah, that
zombies
section.
in that room.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure I wasted both those as well, but I took them out with the shotgun to make sure they wouldn't come back.
As did I, and I got lucky on both those counts, because otherwise they would have come right back and bit me in the ass, literally.
Yeah, and that spot around there, because when you blow the dog whistle, like, I think at least 3 dogs spawn. That would not have been a good place to spawn Crimson Heads.
No, not at all. Otherwise, you'd be dead.
Just a little bit.
So, I gotta ask you this. Favorite soundtrack in the game?
Ooh. I really like the one... I'm not sure the name of the soundtrack piece, but there's a bit that plays in the area of the mansion near the fish tank puzzle with the bees and the fish hooks.
Yes.
There's a bit that plays around there. I really, really like that bit. That bit was cool. I'm trying to think what else, because there was a lot that I really, really liked, but I can't remember where they played. The Mother Neptune section had some quite good music. That was good. That was quite suspenseful. And
it
the forest
My
did as
favorite
well. But
soundtrack
definitely for
of
me,
the game is by far the Neptune tank. and that's what it's called.
Yeah,
if you actually
yeah.
look it up on
Was
YouTube, it's so ominous and so beautiful.
Is that the bit that plays as soon as you get into the tank for the first time and you see the sharks swimming around?
It goes dun 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 dun.
Oh, yeah. I know exactly what you mean. Yes. Yeah.
It's definitely fantastic. So let's actually dig into the campaign itself. The first act of this game takes place in the mansion. And for me, this was one of the scariest openings I've ever seen. When you actually go, when you exit the dining room for the first time, and you leave Barry behind, you see the first zombie.
Yeah.
What was your first impression?
Such a good reveal. Such a good reveal.
It was indeed fantastic, and this guy just comes lumbering after you. Now, did you kill the zombie, or did you run back to Barry?
I ran back. I ran straight back. I didn't even try and kill him.
And that's exactly what I did in my full campaign and cutscene video as well. Ran straight back to Barry. The dining room is interesting because it's one of the safe areas, except for the second floor.
Yeah, first floor is.
First floor is completely safe. Now, what was the toughest puzzle you came across in the first act of this game in the mansion?
The fishhook thing. The fishhook one. Like, it was so simple, the solution for it. But, I mean, I guess this is kind of cheating because it wasn't really difficult. But I swear to God, I did the exact thing that you needed to do, where you put the real bee in the hook on the wall with all the other real bees. I did it like 4 times, and for some reason it never worked. So I was like, I went on with the rest of the game, and I was like, it's probably like an optional thing anyway. And then before I left the mansion for the last time, I was like, hang on, let me just Google this real quick. And I checked, and they've been doing like the exact same thing. So I was like, I went back and tried it one more time, and it just worked. So technically that one, I'm trying to think what other ones there were. There was the one in the crow room. That was fine. I kind of understood that pretty quick.
That was an interesting one because it actually shows the cycles of life.
Yeah. I love how a lot of the puzzles have like philosophical meanings to them and stuff like that. It's such a clever like depth to them. I love that about games of that era with puzzles in particular. Where like every puzzle means something. Like for example, this is a weird example to bring up, but there was this Indiana Jones game. It was something to do with the Emperor's Tomb or something that came out around the same time. And
right.
I'm looking back on it, I'm pretty sure that game was like heavily Resident Evil inspired because it had so many puzzles like that, and all the puzzles had like philosophical or like cultural meanings behind them, like Resident Evil's. And that's one of the things that the game RE1 did so well. One of the many things.
It is. The puzzles are fantastic, and going back and watching my own gameplay, I kept asking myself, how did I remember this for 4 hours straight?
Yeah. Yeah, dude, the speedrunners that go through that game must have like photographic memories or something, because the puzzles in that game are a whole different beast compared to RE2 and RE3 remakes.
I remember there was this section in there where you had to get an imitation key from the dog collar.
Oh, yeah, yes. Yeah, with the whistle.
And you, when you take the actual key that you need, the walls close in, and this Iron Maiden type statue just starts charging at you with spinning spikes. And I'm just kind of like, oh my God. The first time I actually played that, I died.
Yeah, I was just about to say, I assume the first time that you played that, you went and took that key. That's the first thing that I did as well. I learned from my mistake very quickly.
All right, so talking about the first act of the game, what did you think about the snake boss?
Oh, yeah. What was the snake boss's name again?
I thought it was just Big Snake.
Oh. No, hang on, let me check. Yeah, so the snake boss, I liked it. It was pretty simple. The introduction was interesting. Seeing, what was his name? What's the dude's name that you save, who then saves you? Richard, that's it. Richard, yeah. Seeing him come out, and like, there was very clearly something behind that door, but the game almost like it was teasing you with that door, because it was like, no, I've got to go and get the anti-venom or the antidote for Richard first. And then you go through, and there's just like a massive snake there. It was quite intimidating. It was a pretty easy boss fight, honestly. By that point, I had a grenade launcher with like 12 or 18 shells, so it wasn't like I was running out. And I knew for a fact that if I blasted its head with like 3 or 4 explosive grenades, then it was fine. It was dead, so I did that. It wasn't that hard of a boss fight. I will say none of the boss fights in this game were actually as hard as I thought they were going to be. I thought they were going to be a lot harder than they were, but it was still a fun fight, and it's cool. It's something that I wish Resident Evil would do more now. Like go back to like the infected animals like that, like snakes and like spiders and stuff like we see later, and actually go deeper into those as opposed to like infected humans, because it's a really interesting little sort of spin-off of the infections, and it's something that I feel could be fleshed out a bit more.
Which is one of the bright sides of Resident Evil 0.
Which I still haven't finished. I'm on the way.
We definitely need to finish that so we can talk about it. It's an interesting game, but a perfect prequel. It goes hand in hand with the Resident Evil Remake.
Okay, that's good. That's good. I mean, I'm pretty sure it's done around the same time, wasn't it? So it was made to fit with it.
It was. All right, so let's talk about the second act of the game, because this is the one that really gets me the most. Lisa.
Oh, God, yeah. Yeah, that was weird. That was really weird.
So for those of you who haven't played the game yet, under the Spencer Mansion, there is a cabin where this family lived. And I don't remember much about the parents, but I remember Lisa, and she is this hulking monstrosity that just limps towards you. She is handcuffed. She cries, and she just lumbers towards you the entire time. What was your first reaction? This is actually something that was new to the Resident Evil Remake. It was not in the original game.
Oh, really? I didn't know that. That's interesting, actually. I had no idea. Okay, so Lisa, that was interesting. That actually kind of gave me a sort of Nemesis character vibe, like Mr. X and also Nemesis.
Yes.
Like I feel like if they ever did another remake of that game, they could make her a Nemesis thing if they wanted to, because the lore behind her is like her mother and father worked at the Spencer Mansion, and then they were taken for experimentation. I think her father died immediately, and then her mother, what was it? Her mother didn't die immediately, but she got infected with one of the variants of T and was slowly dying, and she tried to have a daughter escape, but then they caught her and experimented on her as well, and that's why she's crying, because they killed her entire family down there. It's really, really creepy stuff. If you find all the lore logs, you can read about it. But she was weird, because she was, I believe, the only boss in the entire game that you can't actually kill, because obviously her death is scripted. Well,
yes.
If she's even dead, we don't even know if she's actually dead. But her death, or her supposed death scene, is the only scripted one of the entire game. So it's kind of creepy not being able to blast my way through her with a grenade launcher or something. I just ended up staggering her with a shotgun and running past her and just leaving her in that cabin.
That's the best thing you can do. And it's so creepy the way she cries, she limps.
Yeah.
She just comes up the stairs. You got to run past her. I remember at this point in the game, I actually had the Magnum.
Oh, yeah. Okay, that's useful.
And that put her down pretty quick, too. But she comes back. She definitely comes back.
It's the fact that she wasn't treated like a boss. Like, there was no boss theme for her. There was no lead up to it. The only lead up there was you go into that like underground cave bit and you see her like makeshift bedroom where she was living, and there's that lore file of what happened to her parents and stuff. And there's like, it's like, that's kind of creepy. Someone was living here recently because the candles were lit, and there's like evidence of something shady that's gone down here. And then you climb the ladder back into the cabin, and like, bam, there she is, just waiting for you. Really creepy build-up.
Yes.
It's a creepy build-up because the build-up can be completely missed. Like, if you weren't paying attention, you could just run through that room, not realize what the room was, and not pick up the lore file, and just run past it, climb the ladder, and then there she is. But like, even if you don't do that, even if you read all the stuff, it's still really creepy. Very, very well handled.
It is very well handled. I will say that one of the things this game really has going for it is the background lore that you can discover as you're playing. One of the ones that sticks to me that was actually in the original game was the Itchy Tasty file. I don't know if you read that one.
Oh, yes, I did. Yeah, what was that? That rings a bell now. I definitely read that.
It was the one where the guy actually is turning into a zombie very slowly.
Yes, it's in the lab, right?
Yes.
It's in one of the lab rooms. Yeah, I remember that. I remember that. And he's talking about his friend, who was down there as well, called like I can't remember what his name was. Yeah, I remember that file though for sure.
And just stuff like that makes this game stand out so much. You can sit there and take your time and actually understand the lore behind it, and it just makes the whole setting so much more ominous.
Yeah, it really does. All those little lore files that scattered everywhere that are optional, but if you read them, they give you more context. It really builds the perfect storm of atmosphere. Like I can't put it into words how expertly crafted and honestly perfect the atmosphere of this game is. Like if you put me on the spot and told me one thing that I'd change, I genuinely couldn't tell you anything. I don't know what I'd change about this game. It was just so good. So good.
It was. Now, I've got to ask you, now that you've played this game, which one do you prefer, the Resident Evil Remake or the Resident Evil 2 Remake?
It's quite hard to compare them because they are very different. This is more of a remaster with a few additional areas, whereas RE2 is like an objective remake. Overall, I'd probably just go with RE1 Remake.
Yes!
Just because just don't get me wrong, RE2 Remake is like a masterpiece. I've already said it's a masterpiece. I love it. But the gameplay and the atmosphere of R Remake, as it's called, or just remake, it's honestly perfect. Like with RE2, like I said in the last video, there are like maybe one or two things that I would have changed. I can't think of a single thing I would have changed about this game. It's one of those games, like Halo 2, like Metal Gear Solid 2, like I was saying earlier, that I just could not imagine anything changing to improve the game. The games are perfect, and they don't need anything changing. And I feel that way about this game. It's definitely the best out of all of them.
Do you think they should actually remake Resident Evil? I know you said there were mods for the Resident Evil 2 remake for tank controls and stuff, but do you think they should actually do a true like DLC for the Resident Evil 2 remake to make it more in the spirit of the original Resident Evil remake?
I would absolutely love that. I don't think they will do ever. It would require quite a lot of work, but I would love that. I would absolutely love that. After playing RE1, it reminded me of like how good tank controls and fixed camera games are at building atmospheres like this, and we don't get any nowadays. There's none. Like, I'm trying to think if I feel like maybe one of the games that was announced for the Series X might have tank controls. I don't know if any other game does nowadays though, and it's a shame because they're so good. They build atmosphere so well. Some of the camera angles in RE1 are like so perfectly placed to build tension and like horror, and it's a shame that more games don't try and do that nowadays.
Well, and you mentioned that earlier when you were coming across your first Crimson Head, or one of the Crimson Heads, and you were going down that hallway, and all of a sudden you turn the corner, and all of a sudden, boom, there he is.
Yeah. It creates like almost dynamic shock moments that any other camera angle can't do, really. Because like with third-person cameras, you can just third-person around a wall. First-person, you can still see like in front of you quite a lot. Whereas the fixed cameras, they can put the camera in a specific place where an object or like even the play model is blocking your view of something to give you that suspense. And like I was saying with the Crimson Head, the corner was put in the perfect place where the mirror could see round the corner, but not all the way. So there was like a little bit of like invisible of area that wasn't visible. And that's where the Crimson Head was. And it made like it gave me massive shock value.
It does indeed. In fact, the first Crimson Head I came across, I remember very, very vividly. I was in one of the hallways in the mansion, and all of a sudden, this was an area that I, taken down the zombie, and I revisited this area, and then I heard thumping, boom, 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 and I knew something was running towards me, but I couldn't see it. And then all of a sudden, boom, there was the Crimson Head, and he just started clawing the living hell out of me. And I was like, oh my God.
I remember I had a very similar experience to that as well. The item box and typewriter room on the left side of the mansion, I believe it was on the west side of the mansion, the sort of floor above that, where it's like a U shape or like an N shape kind of with stairs in the middle. Yes. I'd killed one of the zombies in there and left the other one alive, and I came back there like 10 or 15 minutes after I found my first Crimson Head, and I'd sort of forgotten about them a little bit because I hadn't met any since then. And I went into that little area, and all of a sudden, all I could see in front of me was like a single corridor, and all of a sudden I just heard thud, 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 getting closer, and I was like, hang on, what's this? And all of a sudden, round the corner came a Crimson Head, and I'm pretty sure I died there as well.
Now, did the fact that the Crimson Heads appear earlier in the game take away from the Crimson Head that you actually face when you put all the masks in place?
Yeah, it did actually. Okay, I take it back. That's the one thing I would change. I'd change up that coffin to have something else in it, or to make it more important or something. Because when I popped that coffin open, I already killed like maybe 6 Crimson Heads by that point, and I was like, oh, okay, what's in here then? What's in here? What's gonna be in here? And then I went to inspect it, and just like a regular Crimson Head got out. I mean, it's called the prototype Crimson Head, but it's just a Crimson Head, and I was like, oh, okay. And then I just one-shot it with a shotgun, and that was it. Or I think it's a bit tougher. I like 2 or 3 shot at it with the shotgun, but either way, I killed it like straight away. It didn't even hit me, and I was like, oh, is that it? I was a bit lackluster. But then again, I'm pretty sure I wasn't meant to kill all the zombies that I did early on in the game, and so I wasn't supposed to fight that many Crimson Heads early on. So I can't really blame the game for that. It's more my own play style.
Now let's talk about the third act of this game. Third act is when you return to the mansion from the Neptune tank.
Yes.
And you had to deal with 2 new species of monsters. The Hunters and the Chimeras.
Oh yeah, I forgot about the Chimeras.
Which did you find more challenging? The Hunters, the Chimeras? Because the Hunters have a one-shot move.
Yeah, honestly, neither of them really. I didn't really have an issue with them. Because the shotgun, I think the Chimeras, both of them actually were 2-shot kills with a shotgun. And by this point, I had a fair bit of shotgun ammo, quite a few shells. So I was sort of like, I didn't really mind them that much, honestly. The Hunters were a 1-hit kill with the Magnum, and I had like, I think 10 Magnum shots or something around this time. So I was pretty set with the Magnum. So if ever like a Hunter appeared, I'd just one-shot it with the Magnum. The one issue that I did have around this time of the game wasn't really related to them, but it did make them a bit more difficult, was inventory space. I was running like drastically low on inventory space.
Oh my God.
Constantly. I had to do so many runs back and forth to the item box to like ferry items to one place or something.
That's one thing that I missed from Resident Evil 0 was the item box.
Oh, dude. The first thing that I found in that game, when I got to the first save room and there was no item box, I was like, hang on, am I missing something? So I Googled it, and I saw everyone on like Reddit complaining about there being no item box, and I was like, okay, here we go. It's going to be a lot tougher on the inventory management.
All right, so let's talk about the lab a little bit. How much trouble did you go through actually getting to the lab itself?
Not too much. I did have some trouble in the lab though. Getting to the lab wasn't too bad. There was that one puzzle in the gardens to turn the waterfall off that I got stuck on for a little bit. But as soon as I got past that, I realized that there was one area of the gardens that I hadn't been to yet, which is where I had to put a power generator to turn the elevator on.
Yes.
And I was like, oh, okay, there we go. So I thought I'd explored that entire area. And then I found one area on the map that was still like highlighted as not explored. And I was like, oh, here we go. And there it was. But no, the lab itself, getting to it, I didn't really have much of an issue. But when I got into the lab, some of the puzzles in there, getting the password for that server, I put the wrong password in like 15 times, and I thought that I'd gotten the wrong password. So I walked around the entire exterior of it, just like searching everything, thinking that I'd missed something. And then it turned out that I'd like spelt it wrong or something. But no, the lab was an interesting section.
What was the hardest part for that section for you, aside from the puzzle?
Aside from the puzzle, the chimeras when you go through the vents, they were a bit tough. By that point, I was kind of low on ammo. and they kept popping out of the vents constantly. And it got to the point when I got out of the vents, when I did that sort of like movement puzzle through the vents, and I got out of there again, when all those chimeras started to spawn, I just booked it for the blast door to Chris. I just ran for Chris straight away to get him out.
That actually brings an excellent point. Did you play as Jill or Chris the first time?
Jill. Definitely
Jill's
Jill.
actually easy mode.
Yeah, I want to play as Chris next time. I'm gonna play through it all again at some point soon and do Chris. I know it is not like drastically different, but kind of different. So I'm gonna do that at some point for sure.
When you play as Chris, you can't be a Jill sandwich.
True, that is very true.
All right, so final boss, the Tyrant. Yes, that was my inspiration right there.
Oh wait, was it actually?
That is very true. It was my inspiration for my name was from MythicTyrant, came from Resident Evil.
Ah, the more you know. See, why did I not put that together? I know you're a massive Resident Evil fan. Your name is literally the Tyrant. Why did I not put that together? Well, there you go. You learn something new every day.
And actually, it came from Resident Evil 2, because I always called Mr. X the Tyrant before he was Mr. X.
Ah, okay. So this is like the prequel to your name, and this is the backstory of your name.
This is the backstory to my name. I was the Tyrant, and I became MythicTyrant because of Halo.
Oh, yeah, there we go. I mean, I figured the mythic was because like you do lasso stuff. But yeah, I didn't know about the Tyrant. All
right, so the end of the lab. Did you have any trouble with running out the clock?
Nope, not at all. Not at all. I played the game on normal, so like, or whatever the second difficulty was, the one before hard.
Normal.
Yeah, normal. No, I didn't really. The Tyrant boss kind of screwed me up at first. I got a bit too close, and when I didn't realize that he has one ability where it's like a bit like a long range lunge that one shots you.
Yes, he does.
That just like KO'd me the first time completely. But the second time I figured like, right, I'll kite him, I'll put one shot into him with a shotgun, kite him back, and I kept doing that, and he went down pretty fast. I'm pretty sure it was like 2 shotgun shots and a magnum shot put him down. That was enough to put him down.
Kite. That is something I never thought I'd hear HiddenXperia say. Kite.
Yeah, again, you're learning something new every day.
That's because it's a World of Warcraft term.
Ah, well, to be fair, I've heard that term in many games. Even as zombies. People even say that in zombies now as well.
Yes, you can. You can kite them into actually lunging towards you and then skirting around them so that they don't actually bite you.
Yeah. Yeah, that's basically what I did with the Tyrant. I just kited him around. I baited his attacks, and as soon as he started winding the animation up, got out of there, and then shotgun blasted him, then just repeated that.
That's because you're a smarter man than I am. Now, all right, so I have 2 questions to ask you. We have gone through this before. What is the one thing that you would improve on this game if it was up to you?
I said something earlier, and I can't remember what it was.
Let's see. You were talking about Lisa.
Yeah, it was something to do with that, wasn't it? I don't even know. I did mention something, and I can't remember what it was. I'd say...
I know to me you mentioned the Shark Tank before. You would rather have a big boss fight against Neptune.
Oh, yeah. Okay, that is one thing, yes. The Mother Neptune boss fight was hilariously... it ended hilariously abruptly. You sort of just, throw the generator in the tank and fry her. But then again, at the same time, there's a sort of charm to that, I guess, that I kind of liked. Taking out this massive mutant great white shark by just electrocuting it. It's quite funny. But no, honestly, aside from the one thing that I mentioned earlier that is completely escaping me right now, I don't think I would add anything else. I can't think of anything else that I'd add. The game is perfect. It's not too short. It's not too long. Each section of the game goes on for as long as you'd like it to be. You'd like it to.
It's a 4-hour game.
I don't know. Maybe if I could add one thing, I'd add a few more rooms to the mansion so I could explore the mansion a bit more. But it didn't need that by any means. That's just something that I think could be kind of cool. Maybe. Maybe even make it so you can go outside the front doors. So I know when you open the front doors, normally it just lets a dog in. Maybe if you could go outside the front door and have a walk around like the front of the mansion a little bit would be kind of cool. But other than that, honestly, the game was perfect. It was as perfect as a video game can pretty much get, I think. So,
especially a
wouldn't
remake.
really change much.
Because to me, the Resident Evil Remake is the definitive remake of all remakes.
Yeah, I agree with that.
All right, so last question. Your favorite part of the game?
The whole first act, exploring the mansion for the first time and like finding the puzzles, finding new rooms. When you are, dude, one of the best feelings in any video game ever is when you've been walking past one door that's got one insignia on it for so long, and then you finally get the key for that door and you can go into it. That feeling is, again, it's ironic actually, because MGS2 has a feeling exactly like that. There are doors like all around the map that have like that you need like a certain level of keycard to access, and there's doors like right near the basically like where you spawn in the game that are like level 5 keycard, and you only get that towards the end of the game, and you can go back to the start and go to a new area. Something that games like that do so well that I love, and Resident Evil Remake did that so well. Yeah, I would say the whole first act of the game, exploring the mansion for the first time, hearing the soundtrack pieces, experiencing like the atmosphere and creepy tone of the game for the first time, walking around the mansion, not knowing what's around the next corner or like what door you can and can't go through, was just immaculate. This, honestly, I reckon I would say this is the best remake of all. This is the best remaster of all time. I still say that RE2 Remake is the best remake of all time, but this is the best remaster ever. In my opinion, and yeah, I think
we've got to get you to play the original Resident Evil, at least the director's cut.
Yeah, I'd love to. I mean, I'd love to.
All right, guys. So that is our analysis of the Resident Evil Remake, the original one from 2002. What did you think about it? I'd love to hear your thoughts and opinions in the comments section below. And I'd like to take a moment to thank each and every one of you for taking the time out of your busy day to sit down and watch this video. I really do hope that you enjoyed it. And if you did, I hope you'll consider subscribing for more great content right here on the channel. Thank you all so much for watching. Thank you, HiddenXperia, for being on this show.
My pleasure, dude. Happy to be on here.
It's an honor to have you here, and thank you guys so much for watching. And as always, I will catch you right back here next time. And as always, I'm the Tyrant, signing off.
Goodbye.